Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. I can see Zoom has changed since the last time I used it. So I'm normally used to seeing my big picture on the screen. Now it's up in the top right-hand corner, but never mind. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. I do apologize for being dressed in my outdoor clothes, but we are in the process of moving home, and so I'm having to speak to you from a converted barn, and it's very cold here in the UK, so I'm desperately trying to keep warm while I talk to you. I do appreciate being invited to make this presentation by the Magnus Group. I presented at some of their conferences in person, and I only regret that I'm not able to be with you in person today. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and take you through my presentation. Okay, you should be able to see that on your screen now. Um, as I say, it's a great pleasure to be talking to you today. Again, I'm sorry I'm not there in person. I'm going to be talking about the impact of digital innovation and lifestyle medicine on nursing roles and practices. So my objective today is really to look at some of the challenges, not that we face just in the nursing profession, but all of us face. Public health services are under a lot of pressure, and this AI-generated images of a hospital corridors has been quite typical of some of the challenges that the nursing profession has faced in the UK, particularly during the time of COVID, but is still prevalent in some cases. So we're not out of the woods yet, so to speak. The aging society is one of the reasons why the health services are under pressure. I'm going to explore that in a little bit more detail. And one of the byproducts of this is loneliness and social isolation, which affects, unfortunately, many people of my generation and age group. So looking at some of the challenges that the aging society faces, we're looking at increased longevity, which is a good thing, but unfortunately, as we go older, typically we require more medical care. And I find myself very fortunate to be in a position of not having to take any medication. I'm 76 years old. I'm still, to the best of my knowledge, medically and clinically very fit. And one of the reasons I'm able to be in this condition is something that I'm going to touch on later in my presentation. And of course, with lowering birth rates, there are fewer working people to support this growing population of older people. And as a result, in many countries, in the UK included, elderly care is really underfunded. It is not seen as a priority. And pandemics have only served to exacerbate the situation. So in the UK, and I think in many other countries, where when I was young, care of the elderly was responsibility of the family. Generally speaking, people stayed in the family home and parents were cared for by their children. But today, because children move away and we live in the atomic society, the elderly care is shifting from family responsibility to the community. And there's a good example of this is my partner's father, the late Eric Jepson, who died 4 years ago, almost exactly 4 years ago. He was 96 years old when he died. Fortunately for him and for all of his family, he did not suffer from dementia or any memory problems. He was still very alert and active, but he had many different comorbidities, and the drugs that he used to take on a daily basis or a regular basis are shown on the left-hand side of this table. And unfortunately, with a lot of drugs that are taken together, they don't always agree with each other. But when Eric went into the last weeks of his life, he went on to palliative care, and his drug regime changed to what you see on the right-hand side. Now, that responsibility for looking after Eric fell to my partner, Jackie. So she was having to make sure that Eric took the right drugs at the right time during his life. So today, I think in order to address the challenges that we're facing with non-communicable diseases, especially, we need to make this transition from clinical cure to prevention. And this is not my idea. It was advocated by Sir Simon Stevens when he was head of the National Health Services. And what he said when he was referring to the current situation as being like a slow motion car crash for public health services, he said, it's quite clear that the best chance we have for increasing our lifespans and overall improving our health is to adjust our personal behaviours and to do so at an early age. And what he was referring to, I think, essentially was lifestyle medicine. But lifestyle medicine means that the medical profession, nurses, doctors, etc., have to change priorities. And those priorities are shifting today from cure to prevention. And in that context, nurses are becoming more of coaches for preventative healthcare. And so, as part of a nursing responsibility, increasingly, they will be required to empower patients and ordinary citizens to manage their personal health. Coronavirus has only served to accelerate the digital revolution, and this has led to the growth of telemedicine. Obviously, in many instances, is not regarded as satisfactory as face-to-face conversation, but at least it does make clinical care and consultations more accessible by using tools like the ones we're using today, Zoom. In my case, a reason I think why I find myself still in good health at the age of 76 is that some 12, 13 years ago, I decided to gamify my health and I explored the potential of wearable technologies and mobile applications to be able to help me in a preventative healthcare focus. It wasn't because I had any particular ill health issues, although my DNA analysis showed that I got a higher preponderance for diabetes too, and that actually triggered me to adopt wearables and look after my life. So we're moving, as I said, from family care to care in the home. And one of the people that's inspired me in previous seminars and webinars that I've been involved in is a lady called Joyce Simister, who has founded an organization called Namaste, which ensures or designed to ensure that the human values and roles of nursing will not be replaced by technology. And it's something I really endorse that. And so she is a great advocate of providing personalized human healthcare, especially to people in the last weeks and days of their life. So looking at the technologies that are disrupting the way in which we function today, we have artificial intelligence and machine learning, and I used artificial intelligence myself for a large part of generating some of the videos and images that I'm using in this presentation. We have wearables and biometric devices, which are increasingly becoming medical grade. So they give us as individuals the information we need, and also medical practitioners the information they need to be able to monitor health, not just on a sort of snapshot basis, but on a continuous 24/7 basis. And all of this is made possible by the technologies for communication, 5G and broadband, and the devices that we use, smartphones and mobile applications. Virtual reality and simulation are going to play an increasing role, particularly in medical education and the education and that nurses take part in today. And the Internet of Things is the technology really that glues all of these things together. So looking at preventative healthcare and also some of the digital tools that are available to help manage health conditions. We've got increasingly sophisticated technologies, and the proof of concept device on the left-hand side is a wearable patch that has a display that not only shows you the temperature today, but also gives you an indication of your own health. And increasingly, we're going to see more and more types of interfaces to human beings, ranging from smartwatches to these kind of wearable patches. But then also we are seeing advances in technologies that help to deliver therapies as alternative to drugs. And on the right-hand side, you can see screenshots from some immersive experiences which are designed to give people, maybe in wheelchairs, maybe in different conditions, therapies as alternatives to drugs. And included in that are some digital therapeutics, which include exercise games or exa games that allow people to adopt rehabilitation exercises at home on their own television set under the supervision of a nurse or qualified practitioner. So nursing roles and responsibilities are really about to change quite dramatically, and they are changing quite dramatically. And it's technology that's been the driver behind that, because it allows nurses and clinical practitioners of all kind to adopt higher level procedures with the assistance of technology. So technology is very empowering, not just for doctors, but for all clinical professionals and nurses. And what it means is that because they are able to take on higher tasks and responsibility, it tends to disrupt long established practices. So you'll find nurses taking on tasks that previously might have been done by consultants and highly qualified other practitioners. And as an example of this, and just showing how technology is changing, these three pictures indicate a kind of timeline transition from a traditional operating theatre, where there's no technology to speak of, to today's robotic surgery technologies. And in between, you have technologies to train people to adopt clinical practices. And what I've shown there quite deliberately is my partner, Jackie, who is not a medical professional, nor is she really a technologist. She, in fact, she hates technology. But at a conference in Kuala Lumpur, and they had an exhibition stand, which is used to show how trainee surgeons can conduct simulated operations using the kind of devices that Jack is using, haptic laparoscopic surgical tools, which show what is going on inside the human body on the screen that's displayed there. So the idea behind this gamified simulation is that the operator has to remove a gallstone, and they're marked or rewarded according to how quickly they're able to do the task and the lack of collateral damage that they cause while they're making the operation. And my partner, Jackie, actually achieved better results than some trainee surgeons, which leaves you to wonder where the future of surgery is, particularly when you've got tools like robotic surgeons. But it's very disruptive to people who spent their whole lives training to be surgeons and radiologists, when the technologies becoming available today are quite challenging to long established professions. Virtual reality, augmented reality, and holographs, I think, will take an increasing role in nursing education. And what it means also is that instead of nursing education taking place always in a classroom with a tutor at specific times that may not be convenient and take nurses away from their duties in hospitals, increasingly it would be possible for nurses and other practitioners to be able to access this learning in their own time, using virtual reality headsets or other forms of technology. AI is also very good at identifying early risk, um, and there is some evidence that, in fact, it's probably more accurate in some cases at detecting early forms of things like cancer than trained radiologists. But I think it's very important that AI doesn't replace trained practitioners. It simply should support human intuition. So the enhanced decision making that AI and other technology provides are really meant to be, I think, collaborative. So humans and technology collaborating rather than technology replacing human beings. And it should not replace empathy. So in situations like this, where I'm presenting remotely from a converted barn in a rural location in the middle of the countryside in the UK, I'm able to do this through technology, but it's important that this is supported by human empathy. AI can also help with workflow optimization, with resource planning and optimization. But as I go back and I reinforce this in almost every presentation that I have to make, although I am an advocate for the positive uses of artificial intelligence, technology must not be the ultimate arbiter of life and death, which is what this image is intending to communicate. So good news. I think it's good news for nurses because digital technologies, including artificial intelligence, are likely to benefit the nursing profession. To summarize and conclude, we are in an area with non-communicable diseases where we need to shift from cure to prevention. COVID-19 has accelerated the use of digital technologies, and artificial intelligence and technologies like virtual reality are both empowering and disruptive. So some people are going to be challenged and threatened by these technologies. Nurses' roles will change and basically they will upgrade. And digital therapeutics are part of a pathway to supporting rehabilitation and stress management and play an important role in preventative healthcare. At the end of the day, humanity and human empathy must be paramount. Nurses are going to be increasingly valuable. So it's good news. High fives, everyone. Digital technologies are likely to benefit the nursing profession substantially. So I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and invite any questions that you may have.